We have a new report out from Goldman Sachs. The report is shocking a lot of people, and I don't know why. The report says that if Biden wins and there is a blue wave in the Senate, if there is a big picture blue wave led by Joe Biden defeating Donald Trump, Goldman Sachs says it would lead to a surge in economic growth. And I see people acting, oh my, a Democrat, it would be good for the economy. I'm so shocked. No. If you've watched my show for a while, you would already know why. Democratic presidents are better for the economy. Goldman wrote in a note yesterday that Democratic control of the presidency and of Congress would raise the probability of a fiscal stimulus package worth at least $2 trillion. But it's not just that. Longer term spending measures that Joe Biden wants, like infrastructure, climate, healthcare, education, that boosts economic growth prospects, according to Goldman Sachs. Assuming that the Federal Reserve doesn't mess with interest rates until we get back to full employment and inflation just above 2%. Goldman Sachs estimates that, quote, the net effect of the Biden package would be a front-loaded increase as well as a more back-loaded boost to core PCE inflation. Now, Goldman is also being upfront that if Biden is successful, for example, in raising the corporate income tax rate from 21 to 28, maybe that wouldn't be so good for markets and for the economy. There's debate there, but would that even get passed? It really depends on what happens in the Senate. Now, on the positive side, Goldman also says if we get a blue wave in November, we will likely have easier U.S. fiscal policy, a reduced risk of trade escalation, and a firmer global growth outlook. We call it stability when Donald Trump is gone. But none of this should surprise you because the country does better economically under Democratic presidents. I talked about this 15 years ago. I talked about it 10 years ago. I talked about it 5 years ago. I talked about it in June. This is not about whether Democratic presidents are left enough or really progressive or what. This is merely about looking at a totality of indicators when you have a Democratic president versus a Republican president. And it's better under Democrats. So why would it be any different under Joe Biden? Let's look at those metrics. Typically, we would look at GDP growth, unemployment, stock market performance. Then there's other, intangibles like respect around the world. You can look at poverty, inflation, different elements. Stock market, average annualized return when you have a Democratic president is 14.3%. It is 10.8% under Republicans. The stock market does about 40% better under Democratic presidents. But that's not the economy. What about GDP, gross domestic product? Through 2008, real GDP grew faster under Democratic administrations than Republican, 4.1 versus 2.7. If you were to extend those numbers to today, Barack Obama had better GDP numbers than Donald Trump. So it remains GDP and stocks better with a Democratic president. What about income growth? Well, under Democrats, real median income over the last 50 years grew at 2.2% per year. Under Republicans, only 0.6%. So there you've got wages. On the flip side, unemployment has been 18% higher under Republican presidents. Since World War II, job creation, Democratic presidents have seen 24 million more jobs created on their watch, with an average of 78% more jobs created per year of a Democratic administration than during a Republican administration. Bloomberg looked at U.S. job creation and found that for the close to half century following the Kennedy administration, Democrats have created, wait for it, nearly twice as many private sector jobs as Republicans, even though Democrats have had the presidency for 5 fewer years during that time. None of this is new and none of this is news. This is the reality. And we see Republicans maintain almost a monopoly on the reputation of being good for the economy. How many Republican governors have actually destroyed state budgets? Look at what happened in Kansas. But if you've been following the data, you would know that this is merely a lie. And even on economy, Trump's numbers are worse compared to Biden's than most Republicans. Again, there's this idea that Republicans are better for the economy. They are not. When they say Republicans are good for the economy, what they mean is Republicans will cut regulations and it'll allow companies to make money by polluting, companies to make money by taking advantage of the environment, taking advantage of employees. That lets the very rich get slightly richer, but it's not so good for the economy overall. When Republicans say we're good for the economy because of small government, they mean we will cut education and we will cut welfare, but we will keep writing blank checks to the military budget. We'll pay farmers to grow nothing or to destroy crops, and we will continue this failed idea of what it means to run an economy. It is all horrible code. It's immoral code for really bad policies that help the very rich, but aren't so good for everybody else. It's great that Goldman Sachs put out this report, but it's not actually newsworthy, because if you've been paying attention for the last however many years, you would know that this is a false notion that Republicans are great for the economy. We'll have some of the data I mentioned today on our Instagram page. Okay, so make sure you're following us on Instagram at David Pakman Show. And while you're there, follow me on Instagram for a break from politics. It's puppies, books, and what else? I don't know. A lot of that. On my Instagram, david.pakman.